Previously on this channel, I told the story of how John Wilkes Booth allegedly survived capture at Garrett's farm by troopers of the 16th New York Cavalry and went on to survive for several more decades. The official line is that Booth and a conspirator, David Harold, were chased down and cornered on April 26, 1865. Harold surrendered, but Booth did not. The barn was lit ablaze to try to smoke him out, but one soldier, Boston Corbett, slid his pistol between the slats and fired. The bullet severed Booth's spine, paralyzing him from the waist down. He died with his head buried in his hands, muttering to himself, "Useless, useless, useless." But that's not the whole story. Now, at this point, you may be saying to yourself, wait, I thought this was about classic movie monsters, not president's assassins. We did that one. Don't worry, we'll get there. As the story goes, years later, a man named John St. Helen thought he was about to die. He called to his friend and lawyer, Phineas Bates, who incidentally is the grandfather of Kathy Bates. St. Helen had a confession to make. He was John Wilkes Booth, and he killed the president. The assassination, he claimed, was orchestrated by Andrew Johnson, Lincoln's vice president. The problem was St. Helen lived. That's embarrassing. Having made his confession, he changed his name again, this time to David E. George, and moved to Enid, Oklahoma. In January 13th, 1903, he took his own life, a strychnine. Before his passing, David George reputedly made another confession, this time to a local minister, stating again that he was in fact John Wilkes Booth. No one came to claim the body, so Pennyman's funeral home and furniture store decided, since they had already embalmed him, why let a good corpse go to waste? They put George St. Helen Booth, whatever we want to call him, on display in their window. He became a local attraction. People loved to come and see. Interest in the body was further fueled by newspaper articles about George's confession. Side-by-side comparisons were done between the two mustachioed people, the mummy and Booth. Eventually, Phineas found himself in the area and identified his old friend. He took possession of the body, which he stored in his garage, and Phineas Bates went on to write a book, The Escape and Suicide of John Wilkes Booth, written for the correction of history. He would rent out the mummified corpse of his old friend to circuses and freak shows, or anyone who wanted to display the spectacle, really. After Bates passed in 1923, his widow officially sold Booth's body to a circus owner named William Evans. Some legends claim that the corpse was cursed, not unlike Tutankhamun or Imhotep. Allegedly, all circuses that displayed the body failed in financial ruin. Disregarding the fact that, at this point in the story, we're into the 20s, the Great Depression might ring a bell. Lots of people were financially ruined at that time. In the 1920s, a circus train carrying the mummy derailed, resulting in 8 people dead and several animals. Union veterans of the Civil War stole the corpse from the accident and threatened to hang it. A reward of $1,000 was offered for the body's return, and the thieves returned it, claiming the reward for themselves. Evans was fined at one time for transporting a body without a license, and at another point for teaching false history. In 1931, a team of Chicago doctors used the best forensics of the time to authenticate the mummy, certifying him as John Wilkes Booth. X-rays showed evidence of a neck scar, a broken thumb, and a fractured leg bone, all of which were consistent with injuries Booth had received in life. Mind you, when Booth jumped from the balcony at the Ford's Theater, injuring his leg and yelling, "Sic semper tyrannis," it was his left leg that was injured. Likewise, when Samuel Mudd treated his left leg. But x-rays of the mummy showed an injury to his right leg. Nonetheless, this certified the body in the eyes of the public. In the 1930s, Agnes and Joseph Harkin purchased the mummy for $5,000 and toured the United States with it. In 1937, Jay Gould's $1 Million Circus took possession of the body, and it remained there until the 50s. From there, no one really is sure where the body went. In the 1960s, the Wisconsin Circus World Museum attempted to acquire the mummy from Gould, but they were told that it was no longer in their possession. There are claims in a report from PBS that the body was last seen in the 1970s in a private collection, but these reports are unconfirmed. So, was it Booth's mummy? We may never really know. But when Booth was autopsied, 10 people identified the body. He was identified by his own family and by dental records. The family has agreed to allow the body to be disentombed for DNA testing, but the courts have not allowed it. If there was a government cover-up orchestrated by his own vice president, then any evidence given at that time is fairly irrelevant.